Morning, guys.
Their biggest celebrity crush, easy, Tom Holland.
Dune Part 2, the sequel to the much acclaimed Dune Part 1 that was released back in 2021. This film takes place directly after the events of the first film. The sequel continues the story of Paul Atreides and his quest to take revenge on those who destroyed his family, the House of Atreides. To do that, he unites with the Fremen people of the desert planet Arrakis, building an army large enough to wage war against the House of Harkonnen, as well as higher elite figures of Arrakis such as Emperor Shaddam IV, who was mentioned in the last film. I just want to clarify something before we begin with this review. So if you saw by the title, yes, I know, you must probably be thinking I'm a bit crazy to hear me say that I slept during this movie. And you must probably be warming up your fingers right now to type up some angry comments on this video. So just to get this part out of the way first, to answer your question, did I sleep during this movie? And my answer to that is yes. But hear me out. Yes, because I did actually in fact sleep during Dune. Part 1. I don't know if it'll make things better or worse here, but I do know that you're probably typing in angry comments already by the time of this video. But yes, it's true. I'll be very honest and frank, and I'm becoming less shy in admitting that because I did in fact sleep during the first Dune movie back in 2021. Though to be fair, I had a lot of university homework at that time that kept me up till very late until the morning time, so I basically slept during the daytime and woke up in the late afternoon to watch the movie a few short hours later with my friends, but even so, it's still not enough to keep them from moving on from that, like, not even though some of them don't even like the first movie in the first place. Like, my friends will deliberately bring this up just to wind me up and embarrass me every single time Dune is brought up to the picture. So, it only made sense that my biggest goal going into part 2 here would be to make sure that I tried my damn hardest to not fall asleep in this one. And did it work? Well, yes and no. Yes, because even going as far to bring an energy drink pack with me into the theater to prevent me from drifting off, I'm sad to report that despite the dedication, if I do say so myself, I still ended up falling asleep. For 2 minutes!
How dare you?
Like, I may have missed some additional dialogue, but it wasn't so much that I missed out on entire scenes or major scenes or important pieces of lore and info that I needed to know. So no, technically, I can also say that I did not sleep throughout this movie either. And I was able to still follow through basically 97% of it pretty much. So, with that being said, I can still talk about it, so let's begin. So first of all, I haven't really read the books, although I've read the basic premises of each novel that came out, so I cannot really say much on this matter, but according to many people online apparently, this movie is very faithful to the original source material. So pretty much what you see on screen is pretty much what it says in the book, and now that we have this movie, it's basically a visual depiction of what the books are. And the acting in this one is also really good, like, I would say more powerful than the first one in fact, although some of them were pretty over the top, but on the most part, the acting was amazing. Like, this is a film that, for example, I can really see Timothée Chalamet as an actor. Also, I think the best thing that I like about this movie is the cinematography, or how the film was shot. Like, the shots look absolutely beautiful, like this. Overall, the aesthetic and visuals of this movie look really amazing. Like, if you basically take almost any frame or shot out of this movie and look at it as like a single picture, it basically looks like a beautiful art illustration straight out of the novels. The other thing I also really like, and you have to go to a theater to experience this, so I highly recommend checking out this movie in the theater rather than, waiting until it comes to streaming at home, is the sound. Like, you can actually feel the vibrating of the seats and the feeling of the impact of the bursts of sound. There's pauses, like silences, until there's bursts of sound coming in, bringing on the atmosphere into the theater room that's displayed on screen. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of, films that do this, where they play around with the sound to give you the full cinematic experience. Also, like with the first one, the music is also really good. Like, props to Hans Zimmer, and... Wait, hold on, did Hans Zimmer actually compose these? Yes, thanks to Hans Zimmer, my apologies for that. I personally believe the music will go down as iconic pieces of music in cinematic history going down the line. But I do feel that, like with the first one, similarly, the music was kind of overplayed. Like, the main theme is kind of overplayed and some tracks just sounded too similar to each other. But this main theme, I feel like, again, will always be so powerful, and you'll always feel this sort of powerful essence or aura given off, whenever it plays. I also like how this film was structured, editing-wise, from an editor's perspective, like the interlaying shots or shots overlaying each other. I'm a fan of those kinds of edits. And I've also realized that since after watching this movie, I've noticed that these Dune films actually have plenty of Star Wars parallels. Like, I don't know about you guys, but the fact that, this takes place on a desert planet, kind of like how we first meet Luke on the desert planet Tatooine. And also with Paul Atreides' character as a whole, looking at him, which I won't give away any specific details or any major spoilers for those who haven't read the books or watched the Dune movies yet. I will say that he kind of gives off Anakin Skywalker vibes. If you've seen the movie, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. And the fact that this is a sci-fi franchise about this group of rebels trying to take down this large empire. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if people start comparing the Dune franchise and the Star Wars franchise together. But yeah, it seems like in this case, I guess Dune was the original Star Wars. Although to be fair, there's a lot more outside sources that Star Wars took inspiration from to basically make what Star Wars is today. I could make a separate video about that, but I think that'll be for another time in the future, maybe. And unlike the last film, this movie is actually longer, like the runtime's longer, but I feel like this time around, the longer runtime feels necessary to develop the characters and to also know the wider story more. And it's also more action-packed and fast-paced, like with a lot more action set pieces than the previous one. Yeah, I don't know why this is, like, with every single two-part movie, like, the first part is very slow, like, up to the point where some people tend to skip it because, nothing really happens, and then part 2, where it's more action-packed and more chaotic, more stuff happens there, it's fast-paced. I also like how the overall structure of this movie is basically two groups of characters on two opposite sides of the world in their own sort of storyline before they both come together, finally cross over, and interact with each other in some sort of way, in some sort of big event. In this case, the climactic final battle that takes place in this movie. Which after almost the entire movie apart, they finally meet, and when those scenes when they finally all come together where basically all the characters are on screen, I got goosebumps, man. I've been finding myself becoming a fan of this kind of storytelling over these last few years. Examples of movies where tackling this kind of movie structure that worked quite a bit include, stuff like Avengers Infinity War, Godzilla vs. Kong, the Star Wars films, Jurassic Park, and now you can add Dune to the picture. They've all had sets of protagonists on their own quests and adventures until they both converge with one another, and at that point it's mostly during the climax of the story. As despite being so separate at first, they're in the same world, so their journeys are still linked to each other in some way. It's definitely a nice storytelling technique, I would say, to not only make things easier, especially in terms of when you have such a large film cast on set, by splitting them off into smaller groups to deal with at a time, but it can also encourage, opportunities for characters to go on their own journeys until their journeys converge together with when their common goals start to align. Now, I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about the movie. Actually, the movie is actually really good, like, literally almost perfect, I would say, at least for most people. But for me, it's just some points that I feel like kind of drag the movie down a bit for me personally. But yeah, there were some points of the movie or plot and story that still felt very slow at times. Like, although it's not as slow paced as the first one, whether it's progressing the story, diving deeper into the characters, or learning more about the lore of this fictional world of Arrakis, yeah, some scenes was like, they literally took their time to play out on screen where you could either make it more fast-paced or just like cut more, but yeah, it's still not as slow paced as the first one. Yeah, I don't know what it is about Denis Villeneuve, I hope I don't know what it is about Denis Villeneuve's, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, that are just very slow-paced, like Blade Runner 2049, for example, or his movie Arrival, with these long shots of actors, or long shots of the actors acting, doing their thing, or just long shots of dialogue, exposition. So I guess these Dune films having slow-paced moments are just part of his direction style, which I won't criticize because that's just his thing. But speaking of the film's structure, I also personally think at the same time, though, despite my, positive things to say about that, the two groups of characters, such as having such different storylines, so felt so apart from each other when it had such long time gaps in between them, when interchanging between them throughout the movie. It sometimes felt as though, it was just two different movies combined into one. Like, you could split this movie into 3 parts, essentially. One focusing on Paul, Chani, Jessica, and the Fremen people. One focusing on the House of Harkonnen and Princess Irulan. And one where they all come together in the climactic battle and all the things that happen before and after it. I mean, they could have made this into 3 smaller movies if they wanted to. I mean, not only for more manageable viewing for more general audiences. I'm not saying they should do that, but all I'm saying is that because of the way this movie was structured and with how these characters feel so separate from each other, and how it takes so long to transition or move on to other characters in the movie at a time. I mean, I don't know, personally for me, it feels like sometimes that you honestly forget that some of these characters are in the movie when in fact they are. Like, some main characters don't even appear in the movie until like 45 minutes to 1 hour and a half after the movie started. And there's also some themes and conceptual ideas that I took note of while watching the movie that I like how the film tackles it. Like, for example, the idea of political affairs between 2 different parties, like obviously continuing on for the first film with the war between the House of Atreides and the House of Harkonnen. But what I've also noticed about this movie is that it's actually very focused on, you know, the ideas of spirituality, religion, and cultural celebration, if that makes sense. Though not relating to or based on any specific real life religion or culture. But events throughout this movie spiritually or even culturally impact these characters' actions, such as Paul learning from the Fremen people's ways, and Paul being spiritually guided throughout this quest to become more powerful against those who destroyed his family, despite him pledging his allegiance to Chani and the Fremen people throughout the first half of the movie. But due to his visions of how much of a role he has in the war between Atreides and Harkonnen for the Arrakis planet, the idea of his fears of getting the best of him is also tackled in this movie, and gets anticipated for the 3rd film if and when that time comes. But anyways, again, despite the film still being very slow at times, though not as slow as the first one, and for the film's structure of making us feel that, you know, some of these characters feel so separate that it feels like 2 different movies, doesn't change the fact that this is actually a really good movie. Wouldn't recommend it to everyone if you're not into like really slow movies or you fall asleep easily. But yeah, everything else about it is really good. Like everything on technical aspect, on a visual aspect, on acting aspect, just everything else about this movie is like really, really good. Up to the point where it's better than the first one in my opinion. And yeah, I could definitely see that this franchise has potential to be the next big like Star Wars type of sci-fi kind of franchise going down the line. I could see spin-offs of this franchise, feature sequels or trilogies. Yeah, because it's not just this book that they're adapting. Believe it or not, they've only adapted 1 book so far. There's still like I think 5 to 7 more novels after this, so yeah, can't wait to see where this franchise goes. I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a 9 out of 10 and an A. Alright guys, it's gonna be my time. Thank you so much for watching, and I do apologize actually for if this video may sound like I'm having less energy or if I sound less energetic, and if my points may sound jumbled up, don't really make any sense, or just not as detailed as I usually am. Like, I've had a lot of work and a lot of gigs this past week, and which will be going on throughout this month of March, and yeah, I'm still feeling very tired from it. It's been a long week, and I don't know if you could tell from my face right now, but yeah, I'm still feeling very tired, but I'm still gonna do my best for you guys. I hope to do that, just to get content as out as I can, as fast as I can, whenever I can. So sorry if it seems this video is very rushed, but hope you guys still enjoyed it nonetheless. And if you did, make sure to punch that subscribe button in the face. And don't forget to leave a like on this video because that will help out a ton. And be sure to share this video around for those who may also be fans of this Dune franchise, or just fans of movies like this or movies in general. But again, that's my review. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in line for the next one. Rhinos, roll out, take care.